Can anything good come from Caliroga? From there came a young man who was obsessed with the distant horizons, and with a large family of brothers and sisters. He believed in the word, and his great achievement was that they should preach it with the eloquence of their example. Anxious to see the truth face to face, he died in Bologna at the age of 51. To follow in his footsteps helps us to fulfill ourselves. It helps us to discover our vocation as pilgrims. As Dominicans, we testify to his presence every day.
Not only was it worth the pain, it was also worth the pleasure. I had to return sometime, like this, unknown. To them I am a stranger. The plain is still the same, the adobes are the same colour, and they squeeze together to support one another. This rock has scarcely changed. Once it seemed huge to me. How many evenings have I climbed up here to scan the horizon, in the hope of seeing a distant dust cloud raised by horses' hooves, and go running down to be the first to tell Mother the news that Father was back. This horizon formed me, it branded me. I always used to wonder what was beyond it, and why the sky blushed every evening with shame. And those long nights of winter, Mama Juana's stories of the Arabs and their fights with Papa Felix's Christians, the fire in the hearth, the creaking timbers of the castle, the village children's games, the fights with Antonio and Manes, the races up to the summit, the dog which followed the militia and ended up living with us, the lives of saints, the first prayers, the vines, the wheat, the harvests, the horses, the arms. The dreams, those childhood dreams, and the horizon, the remoteness, the distance, the mystery, visions which burned into my mind and made me long for the morning. It all began to change the morning that they woke me early and we set off to see my uncle in Gumiel. Mama Juana en route preparing me. I just looked at the horizon. What was there behind it? She telling me that I had to study, that the best thing for me was not to be a warrior, that times were difficult and one had to know many things. And I could only say, "But tell me, Mother, what is there beyond this? Do the sky and the earth meet or not? Your uncle will explain it better than I could." And there I stayed. The village was similar. There was no rock of St. George, but there was more horizon, bigger and more varied. There were children. And books. Uncle Gonzalo was good, and I liked learning. There were other, more important battles to fight than those which Father waged on the banks of the Duero. Uncle taught me that one had to battle against people's ignorance and lack of culture, that the truth grew more obscure with each day, and that people's faith withered like the crops in the fields, and the Lord's harvest was lost for want of helping hands. There were long walks, the silence of Castile, solitude, the sky and the horizon, and always an irresistible voice that drove me on. It was the energy of spring, breaking out all around, but also, more importantly, within. I dreamed. I was young. Dreams always sustained me. Even Mama Juana told me that she was not surprised that I was such a dreamer and so imaginative, for I had fed on dreams even before I came into being. Next came Palencia and the university, philosophy and theology. There beside the river I reached manhood. The plague brought with it difficult times. I sold my books. The poverty, the pain, the hungry eyes of those people were more than I could bear. I could not study in hidebound books while other men, my brothers, were dying of hunger. After Palencia came Ozma and another horizon. I could have returned to my village, to my uncle, but I preferred to continue searching for truth and faith in the company of others. Ozma offered me the possibility of living in community. It was there I became a priest. It was a new adventure, and a new horizon opened up. It was a matter of continuing to expand both the outer space and the space within. One of my dreams was to travel, to go further, always further. Bishop Diego de Acevedo, my very good friend, called me one morning. King Alfonso VIII was sending us to Denmark. My imagination whirled. I began to feel like an apostle, like those 12 who set out to break new ground. Diego and I wanted to stay and preach the gospel. Pope Honorius III did not allow us. Denmark, new frontiers, strange lodgings, lots of different people, a different ecclesiastical life. As we passed through the south of France, we had occasion to see at first hand how heresy was wreaking havoc among the most simple people. The Albigensians and the Cathars were admired for their purity of lifestyle, but their doctrine was quite different from the good news of Jesus. It was there that I met 3 Cistercian monks, Arnold, Raoul and Peter, who had come to preach the gospel. It was no easy task. Narbonne, Montpellier, Toulouse, Carcassonne. Those years between 1206 and 1213 were difficult. Wars, attacks, loneliness. Hope alone sustained me. And those first women gave it form. Some abandoned their heresy and sought to live out the demands of the gospel in community. What they did was to pray, speaking with God in a personal way, so that he became increasingly closer to mankind. And so Pruy was born. Then came the men. Some joined us from their desire to live in community. We wanted to live as witnesses of the bread and the word. It was in springtime, April 1215, when we began to give life and shape to our obedience, poverty and love. It was springtime. It had to be springtime. I remember it as a bright day with a strong midday light in the south of France. I always wanted the communities to have light, to be open and transparent. What came afterwards was easier. We were buoyed up by the enthusiasm of those who take the first steps. We were driven on by the babblings of those who break new ground. We were seduced by the irresistible attraction of that extensive horizon of preaching. We had to pray and to study always. On the 22nd of December, close to Christmas in 1216, the Order of Preachers was born. What fire was it that burned in us? What sort of extension of Pentecost? Was it not a repetition of what the apostles had begun? We asked ourselves many questions once again, and then decided to part company, to separate in order to turn our labour into reality. We had to expand our horizons. We could not remain a closely knit group. We had to go out and witness. We had to be beacons of light in every direction. Some protested that our dispersal had come too quickly. I remember that it was a day close to Passover. Indeed, was it not a question of passing over in advance? It was May 1217. The fields called out imploringly. I was still dreaming even now with my 45 years. Some I sent to Toulouse, others went to Paris. 7 brothers went there. 4 went to my Castilian homeland, to Madrid, to Segovia. And then I myself set off for Rome. The parting was difficult. I was alone once more. I wanted to return to Spain to see Calaroga and Osma. I wanted to go back to my roots and fill myself with that light which had seen me leave, with that dryness and that linear geometry pointing towards infinity. I needed to rest again in that mystery and rethink the long journey I started that morning with Mama Juana. I needed to feel like a man again, or as Thomas Aquinas was shortly to put it, like the horizon between time and eternity. That is why I am here, Calaroga. I have returned to you to weigh up everything since the beginning, to analyze this work now begun. I have come to ask myself and to ask you what is left of all that there was. Where are those first essentials still to be found? Why does the initial impetus fade and blur? What remains of the eager faithfulness of those beginnings? What moves my friars to continue on their course? And these young people, Lord, what has brought them here? What has seduced them and moved their hearts to be generous and to surrender themselves to the light and the word? I don't know. It must be the weight of the years that has made me doubt. So many years of struggle, so much quiet momentum, so much hidden presence of my spirit in them. And now it is I who doubt, ask and question. Nearly 800 years, Lord. Is it not perhaps time to draw the curtain and cover over that portion of the church which you consigned to us? Or is it that I now lack that trust, faith and hope which impelled me in the ardent years of my apostolic task? Yes, I know, Lord, that by their fruits you will know them. And my fruits, yours too, because it is you who call, choose and seduce. I merely provided the medium by which to reply to your eternal call. You know that my fruits are the lives of many men and women who adhered to the passion of the truth, of your truth. But in all these centuries, what did they do with the light and the word? What did they do with the truth? How have they travelled their path? No, Lord, you shouldn't find it strange that I should now begin to question. Everything was already being questioned in Paris, Cologne and Oxford. I wanted to give your answer in the midst of so much haziness. My friars also wanted to take that step towards seeking the difficult communion between the faith that you give us every day and the reason that you take away from us every night. To us fell the difficult but graciously accepted task of being the ones who had to bring life to that always difficult synthesis of action and contemplation, of faith and doubt, prayer and work, so much confrontation and dialectic. And you have wanted us to become so many two-way bridges in these 8 centuries. Jordan in Saxony, Raymond in Catalonia, Jacinto in Poland, Thomas in Paris, Albertus in Cologne, Peter in Verona, Bartholomew in Guatemala, Martin in Peru, Luis Beltrán in Valencia, Diego de Deza, Melchor Cano, Domingo de Sota, Victoria in Salamanca, Torquemada in Castile, Savonarola and Fra Angelico in Florence, universities, public squares, books, convents, discoveries, councils, villages, royal courts, missions, dioceses. And more importantly, those thousands of friars who have made it possible for many to become the head of that white iceberg which has been my work, your work, the preaching friars. You will say I'm complaining if I say that you even wanted us to be the synthesis of opposites in our manner of dress, black and white. You know very well how difficult it is to play the historic role of contradictory signs, of bridges between men and you. And you know it very well because that was the difficult task that you commended to your son, to be seen as a man but be accepted at the same time as God. Has it all been crystal clear? Did they not distort the good news? Were there no ulterior motives? Does the passion for the truth still endure? What became of our unity? It has all been very strained, like all human life and relations. Perhaps that is why they have remained a family within the church. For without tensions, without struggles, without hits and misses, light and darkness, recruits and deserters, saints and sinners, without all that strange black and white amalgam, we would have been forgotten long ago. Yes, I think that is why there are still young people ready to be signs and symbols of unity. And balancing our hard, impetuous and sometimes aggressive task was the warm and comforting presence of so many good and courageous women with a passion for that same truth. Diana of Andaló, Catherine of Siena, Rose of Lima, and so many Dominican sisters who with their prayer, work, faithfulness and constancy have filled with human and Christian meaning that portion of the church where we have not been able to sow. Whilst reading the newspaper, that daily Bible, I have been very surprised to find that one of my friars has had a book banned. Another was murdered in Central America. A Dominican priest has been appointed bishop to the missions. A group of young men have taken the habit in Africa. 2 Dominican priests are prisoners in Eastern Europe. Another has discovered a tribe in the Amazon. Another group of friars has been ordained in the Far East. 5 young men have taken vows in France. Some new communities in areas of conflict. I can see how there still endures my insistent idea of going out to meet the Cumans, or whoever the opponent should be, going wherever men suffer and struggle, in the front lines and in the ideological frontier zones, where the courage to go on is put to the test. They still want to banish darkness, Lord. Perhaps I am ingenuous if I ask myself if starting on this path was worth the pain. The friars and nuns tell me that not only was it worth the pain, but also worth the pleasure. That great pleasure that comes from knowing you are part of a single family, a single search, a transparent meeting around the bread and the word. Being close to them, sharing with them, being of service from afar makes me feel better. This return to my roots has made me breathe deeply and take in fresh air. It has made me realize that we have to continue and that nothing in this universe is lost. The future is ours because the past was difficult and because the present stirs us deeply. Lord, it doesn't matter what they say you are like as long as they say it. As long as they say it in prayer and study, in community life and action, in factories and schools, in laboratories and lecture rooms, with books and with brooms. It is all a question of unification, of being a stepping stone or a bridge which is used and then forgotten. Yes, I know that the road is long and the pace is heavy going. I know that the landscape is saturated. Let us be the roots so that your tree might continue to bloom.